And there's a different way that they celebrate sports in these other countries. Like, it is really a party at these stadiums. And when I say that, I'm talking about South Korea. Like, when I played over there in Korea for 2 years, it was special because every day I came to the ballpark, it was like I was a rock star. And I felt that way because I felt like it was a concert at every single game. Nobody was sitting down, nobody was on their phone, everybody was lit, everybody was drinking, having a good time. And I think a lot of it is about their lifestyle, right? It's a really not a good work-life balance over there. A lot of focus on work, so that when they get to these stadiums, it's like they just get to let loose. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Show and Go with X. I got my boy J Mike here. He's going to be rattling off some of the trending topics that are going on in the game today, and I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to get into it. You may like it, you may not, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to still give it to you. So let's get it kicked off. J Mike, what do we got?
X, well, first and foremost, it's an honor to be in front of the camera. I know that usually I'm breaking the camera with how good I am, so hopefully you're highlighted in this. But our first topic of the day is Jose Altuve signs a 5-year, $125 million extension. Yeah. Astro for life to be expected at this point. He's going to be the first second baseman to reach $300 million in career earnings. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, when I think about Jose Altuve, one of the greatest Astros of all time, maybe the greatest Astro of all time, even at this point. But by the time he finishes his career 100%, I look at a guy that came up in the organization, beat all odds, right? You think about him being 5'6", maybe smaller than that.
Short Kings, you know. Baby.
Yeah, Short Kings. Shout out to the Short Kings.
Shout out to the Short Kings.
But like, to be able for our game to have these opportunities where a guy stays in one jersey his whole career, like, we don't see that too often, especially in today's modern game of all sports, right? Guys are trying to find the best contract, usually leaving teams, going to the next place. But Altuve's been a staple in the organization. He's been a foundation. He's seen the losing and now the winning with this team, 7 straight ALCS. So I think that that's huge for them, but also huge for the sport in general. It makes baseball look really good right now.
You're right. There's not a lot of that in our game today. We see it jumping around, but now you got a guy like Aaron Judge who's staying long-term with the Yankees, Trout who's staying long-term with the Angels at this point. But speaking of Judge and Altuve, there was the old debate of the 2017 AL MVP, right? And there's a cheating scandal. Yeah. And we've seen so many guys right now not be let into the Hall of Fame because of the cheating scandals of the late 90s, early 2000s. With Altuve, my question is, do you think that the cheating scandal is going to have the same effect that the steroid scandal has had on some of these guys when it comes to vote for the Hall of Fame?
It will have some effect. And especially, I look at it, today's modern voters almost care less about the steroid stuff than they do about what we've seen recently with cheating. So I think that that's something that could affect him. He's still going to be a Hall of Famer, but he may have to wait a little bit. We don't know, but I think that today's voter, I'm not talking about the old school voter who is really adamant about not letting steroid and PED users in.
Purity of the game.
The modern day voter might look at cheating what the Astros did in 2017 and consider that a real reason to keep somebody out of the Hall of Fame. We've already seen some of that negativity towards Carlos Beltran. So it could be the same situation, but I think he still ends up getting in.
Still gets in. All right, well, second topic, we're moving on to the Red Sox taking on Netflix. And to me, this was shocking. First and foremost, we talk about this all the time. Baseball tends to be about 5 years behind every other sport when it comes to media. So you see all these other sports taking on the Netflix documentaries. We got F1, we got golf, we got tennis. We've seen the quarterback documentary. Now the NBA is doing it with a couple guys. So finally, baseball is opening up the locker room doors and Netflix is coming in. I'm shocked by this. Baseball is typically known as a sport that, hey, we don't talk about it in season. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you're not playing well, don't be talking to media. Focus on the game. What are your impressions of this?
Well, I'm shocked that there's going to be a Netflix special for 2 reasons, because baseball is usually so far behind when it comes to the content that they're providing fans and supporters and even just the everyday person who may not be all invested in the baseball. But also I look at Netflix goes inside. Like, they get real coverage a lot of the times. I'm interested to see if that's what they actually get with the Boston Red Sox. And if they do, how do players respond to that? Because like you said, baseball's 162 games in 180 days. Having that much coverage with guys going through ups and downs is going to be tough. But also, I look at the Red Sox in general have been struggling as of recent. So what does that look like going into that clubhouse or going and getting that extra access when a team may be last in their division or may not finish towards the top of their division? Is that something Alex Cora, the manager, is going to want? Is that something that, new front office, they're going to be impacted by that? So I don't know if this was the right team, but it no matter what, it's going to be interesting to see what they have.
Well, talk to me about that. The dog days of summer. That's what the big phrase in baseball is. The dog days of summer. You got to make it through June. You got to make it through July. And then the energy comes in August and September as you make the playoff push. What is media in general like in the summer? And then after you answer that question, what is it going to be like when you have to take another step? Like, take me through the mindset of answering those types of questions.
No player wants to deal with media during the dog days of summer. It's just plain and simple, because that's when you're most tired, right? You're almost trying to find something to keep you motivated, keep you happy, keep you going when you're just every single day. But I think maybe this will be a different type of media that allows the players to still just be themselves, right? And then maybe it's something to where they're not answering as many questions, but more so the cameras are just on their everyday moves. And I think that would be something new towards baseball and us getting to see that type of access too. So ultimately, it should help the sport, but it's just interesting that the Red Sox are the team that they're going to do it for.
Yeah, well, they're also announced they're going to do a documentary about the 2004 team, the miracle story, breaking the curse, all that good stuff. Right. Growing up at the time, my dad was working with the Yankees a little bit, so I was a diehard Yankee fan at that point, and 9-year-old J. Mike was absolutely heartbroken. But thinking about that time, thinking about that documentary, what do you think are some of the cool storylines to look for in that documentary as well?
No, I just look at, a team that was against all odds, right? A team that we heard so much against in the clubhouse that things were going crazy in there. And I'm wondering if they have some, not necessarily that footage, but just those reactions to what this clubhouse was like. Interested in hearing stories from Papi Ortiz, right? Kevin Millar is another guy that we hear a lot from, talking about those times. That was a special team. I want to know how they found themselves close in the clubhouse. I can almost care. We saw what they did on the field, but what made them a close-knit team that made them have success?
Special. Well, speaking of close-knit teams and a guy that's close to his organization, Clayton Kershaw.
The transition.
Hey, we're trying.
Let's go.
We're trying. I'm trying to earn my spot back on camera later. I don't want to be show and go and get out of here, all right? I want to be show and return at this point is what I'd like to do.
You brought jokes.
Come on. We got to do what we can. Clayton Kershaw, all right, he signed with the Dodgers. Returning for his 17th season, another guy that stayed with the team for the entirety of his career. I'm going to read his resume real quick just because I have it here. Former NL MVP, a 10-time All-Star, a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, and a World Series champion. He owns a lifetime 2.48 ERA, and his 1.57 ERA plus is second all-time behind Mariano Rivera among pitchers with at least 1,000 innings. Incredible. Is this even news? Like, are we surprised that he's going back to L.A.?
I think it is news because this is a guy that had a decision to maybe even go to Texas where he lives, right? So the one thing that I think is important to understand is Clayton Kershaw doesn't have to be the ace anymore, right? So I think that almost makes this situation even better because you have added Tyler Glass now. You've added Yamamoto, $300 million deal from Japan. And then you think about Bobby Miller and what he brings to the table. Same thing with Walker Buehler will be back. There's depth now in the rotation to where he doesn't have to be the guy to put everything on his shoulders. And we've seen him do that, right? But also now he has a different course in his career. He's a guy that's not going to throw 200 innings. He's a guy that's, when he's right, he's one of the best in the game, but he hasn't been always right. So just as long as he's healthy, just being a contributor to this rotation is just going to be as important to him as it is to the team.
Can you imagine him slotting in like the 3 or 4 spot in a rotation and knowing that Shohei is not pitching this year? He could be coming back healthy next year, hopefully. But I think that lineup is turning to, obviously, it's incredible. It's going to be interesting. But even, I want to talk about Shohei for a second while we're talking about the Dodgers. Do you think one of the reasons he chose to go to LA was because of the veteran guys they have, and there's a little bit of autonomy there. Is that something that you think was attractive to him? I've heard that thrown around a lot.
I think that that's part of it because I think those guys bring a certain level of expectation to win, right? And I think that's the whole organization, but there's a close-knit group there when you think about MVP caliber status guys like Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts that are a staple within that organization now. Of course you would want to be a part of that, right? And I think that also he's familiar with the Los Angeles area, doesn't have to move anywhere unfamiliar. I think it's just going to be interesting to see, is it Mookie Betts, then Shohei, then Freddie Freeman? Is it Freddie Freeman at the top? What do they end up doing with that lineup? I would go Mookie, Shohei, Freddie Freeman.
That's a good problem to have right there.
Definitely.
And the fact that Mookie's playing second base too is just like, it's comical. That's
all.
how good they are. Well, staying on the West Coast, not as quite a powerhouse of an organization. We're going to talk about the Oakland A's a little bit. An article came out the other day from Front Office Sports, and it says a quote from the Las Vegas mayor. So we're all excited. We think that the A's are going to Vegas, and this is a quote from the Las Vegas mayor. They've got to figure out a way to stay in Oakland. That's not good. That's not good. And then we hear other news articles coming out that a teachers union that's backed, a teachers union backed group is suing to stop tax money for an A's stadium plan in Vegas.
Yeah.
This is trouble in paradise, trouble in the Strip. What's going on, man?
I don't necessarily think there's going to be trouble in Vegas for the A's, but what I do think there is ulterior motives for a mayor that may be getting pressed to say some certain things, right? And if there's somebody that supports her that is not wanting this team to come in and use taxpayers' dollars to build a stadium, in which we saw them do with the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders now, that's got to be a part of this situation, right? I still think it ultimately happens. I think it's still good for baseball that you bring a team to Las Vegas, because you've seen these teams now come to Las Vegas, and the fan support has been amazing. Now will the A's still, will they have an opportunity to spend? I don't know. I don't know if they change the way they spend, but I do think that there's opportunity for their franchise to continue to grow in an amazing place where I went to school, so I'm a little biased in Las Vegas.
Well, I think it's interesting is with Vegas, you've had a relocation and then you've had an expansion team. So the Golden Knights, you got an expansion team. The Raiders, you have a relocation.
Right.
And Manfred has been on the record. He said, we're not going to talk about expansion until we figure out the situation in Tampa and we figure out the situation in Oakland.
Right.
Tampa has clearly started to figure their stuff out. They got the new stadium coming in St. Pete. You and I live on the Tampa Bay side. We were hoping they were going to maybe build it on this side, but this cement St. Pete is its own city a little bit. So that'll be exciting. That's in the works. But Oakland, like, it just seems like they can't figure it out. In an article that was on ESPN by Field Level Media, what they talked about is once the public funds stop coming, relocation's going to stop coming.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest worry for me in Oakland and in Vegas is, will these public funds come in and help build the stadium with taxation and all that good stuff? And that's where you realize it is political. Like you said, it's bigger than baseball. And that was a big issue here in Tampa with Stu and them expanding over to Tampa or St. Pete, who was going to offer the most money. St. Pete came in and offered it.
Right.
So that, I think, to me, is the biggest fear in terms of the expansion versus the relocation
and
side.
Ultimately, it's disappointing for the fan base that lives in Oakland, right? If you're not able to get a new stadium or be able to keep a team there, it's hard to continue to support that team when they've left you and you've known them in your city for a long period of time. So it's disappointing for them. Hopefully they figure out a way to keep baseball in Oakland, because I know that there's a huge fan base there, and we've seen it by a lot of the protests and whatnot that have happened as well.
Or the anti-protests.
They
got going on. Well, even then, the expansion piece, we've got a couple guys that have been on this show that have talked about the desire for expansion and getting more guys some MLB jobs. And, Utah just voted about they're all for an expansion in Salt Lake, and then we're even seeing a new stadium potentially being built in Chicago with the White Sox. So baseball is growing, which is exciting, but I think we got to figure out this Oakland situation before that 100%. Happens. Well, speaking of baseball, we're less than 50 days away till opening day. Yeah. Give me some surprise picks, some picks that people would go, dang, I didn't know X was thinking that for the 2024 baseball season.
Some surprise picks. Okay. Something tells me that we need to look at the Cardinals coming back from last year and bouncing back. I know it's a team that really struggled last year. when you talk about all facets of the game. But I look at now another year under the belt of Jordan Walker. I look at you bringing a young rookie in Mason Wynn coming up and doing his thing at the shortstop position. They've added 3 pitchers to this team, starting pitchers, which they needed badly last year. And I expect guys to bounce back in that offense. I expect them to be a threat in 2024. So I'm excited to see what they bring to the table here pretty soon.
So sleeper team, you got the St. Louis Cardinals making a push.
Yeah.
What about some breakout years for some guys? Maybe a comeback
Yeah.
player or a new young guy that you think is going to have a breakout year.
Yeah, I'm really high on Hunter Green with the Reds. I think, first of all, the Reds are another team that could make a push to be in the postseason. They did that last year. And their starting pitching is going to be important. So Hunter Green, to me, I think he's got the ability to not only just be an ace, I think he could be a star pitcher in our game. Cy Young material. I expect him to have a breakout year, a guy that will dominate this season. Another guy, too, that didn't quite play the full season last year, but I think he has the same amount of star power is a Royce Lewis from the Twins. I think he's a guy we saw hit a lot of home runs in a short amount of time. He can do the same thing. I'm excited to see what he does as well.
One thing I love about Hunter Green is he has a swag too. Like he has a swag about him, whether it's his style or whether the way his presence on the mound is. But he brings a swag to the game.
The boys that bring some swag, like we need them highlighted in the game.
Absolutely.
And Royce Lewis is one of them too. Morel over there with the Cubs, he's another one of my favorites. Got some serious power. So yeah, I'm happy to see what these guys do.
I know another thing that you're excited about is this year MLB expanded their international series.
Yeah.
So they're going to go to the Dominican Republic for a spring training matchup, which that'll be fun if the Netflix cameras are rolling for the Red Sox at that point. That'll be fun to see a couple guys go back there. We'll be going to London again, Mexico City, and then back to your previous home. They're headed to Korea.
Yeah.
So talk to me, why do you think these expansion series are so important, or the global series, the expansion of that is so important? But also maybe give me a quick hit on Korea. I know you've been posting a lot of content about that as well.
Yeah, the international market is huge. And it's bigger than we realize because we're here in the United States. But having played in Dominican, having played in Colombia, Mexico, Korea, all these different places, I've seen how big baseball is in these areas. And if these fans can just get a touch of it, right, they'll realize how special the game is. And I'm not just talking about like baseball fans. I'm talking about just people that love sports. And there's a different way that they celebrate sports in these other countries. Like it is really a party at these stadiums. And when I say that, I'm talking about South Korea. Like when I played over there in Korea for 2 years, it was special because every day I came to the ballpark, it was like I was a rock star. And I felt that way because I felt like it was a concert at every single game. Nobody was sitting down, nobody was on their phone, everybody was lit, everybody was drinking, having a good time. And I think a lot of it is about their lifestyle, right? It's a really not a good work-life balance over there. A lot of focus on work, so that when they get to these stadiums, it's like they just get to let loose. And I love that aspect, and the respect factor was amazing over there. And I'm excited for, obviously, the Dodgers and Padres to both play over there because they'll get to experience that type of atmosphere.
Well, I want to take the next topic. We're going to keep international. I'm going to mix it up on you a little bit. And let's talk about the Caribbean series that's going on in Miami right now. And you and I had the experience. We got to go to the World Baseball Classic in Miami this year. Obviously, USA went on a tear for a little bit, and that was exciting. But I think between the energy of the USA-Cuba game in the first semifinal, but then the second semifinal with Japan and Mexico with Randy Arozarena robbing a home run and Shohei doing his thing and the walk-off win for Japan. Like then you get the final and you get Trout versus Shohei, the matchup everybody prayed for. That environment made a lot of people fall back in love with baseball again. And I think it is a testament to the international energy that's brought when we have the global game of baseball on display. But the Caribbean series right now, can you explain the Caribbean series and then talk a little bit more about your experience with Latin American baseball? Yeah,
so I'll give it an exact experience. Being in the Dominican, I played over there for a couple of off seasons, and it's Winterball, right? So it's guys will have their teams here, but also go in the winter, and they want to get better. They want to sharpen tools. So you have these teams in the Caribbean, you have these teams in Dominican, Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia, all these countries in which you can play Winterball. Now, the best team out of those countries goes to the Caribbean series, and they come and play. And this is the first time it's in the United States and playing at an actual Major League stadium in Miami. So now you have all these guys coming and playing there, and it's special because they're representing their country. They're representing their team. We're a Winterball team, but you're also representing your country. And I think that's why you saw the WBC get so much fan attraction, is because people get to put that country on their chest that they represent. And Miami's such a huge melting pot of that. So that's what you get with the Caribbean Series. It's just as exciting. The stadium's been packed out there, more so than you see with some Miami Marlins games. But that winter ball experience is different because it's almost like the stress of playing in the major leagues, or even if you're in the minor leagues, okay, that goes away. I'm here to just sharpen my tools, find ways to get better. And it's almost less about like regimen, and it's more about get out there and go. Get out there and play, and I think that's the best part about playing winter ball.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time in the Dominican Republic as well. Been to a lot of Dominican Winter League games, and it's way better. Like the energy, the excitement is way better than any game in the U.S. in my opinion. But talk to me about some of the crazy story. Like, give me your craziest story from playing winter ball, because it's different. It's a different feel. What's your craziest story winter ball in the Dominican Republic?
Craziest story? Oh my goodness. Probably showing up. One of them would be showing up maybe like 10 minutes after the game was supposed to start because our bus broke down. And then not only broke down, like guys we picked up on the way. Like we took a bus from San Francisco de Macorís going to what's the capital? Santo Domingo.
Yeah.
We're taking a trip to Santo Domingo. We're picking up guys that live in different cities on the way. But the problem was our bus broke down 10 minutes into the trip. Once we got our bus fixed, we're picking up guys on the way. Some guys not even at the bus stop that they're supposed to be at. So we have to wait at the bus stop for them another 20 minutes before they show up. So we're picking up guys on the way to Santo Domingo. We end up being 10 minutes late for the actual game time. Game start at 7. We're there at 7:10. We just show up, start playing. Like no batting practice, basically no stretching, no nothing. And then we end up beating the other team. I think it was like 10-3. And we were playing Lycée.
Yeah. Which Lycée's in the final of the Caribbean Series. That's my pick to win it all. But I think that's show and go. That's where it all started.
That represents show and go
right there. Yeah. That's where it all started.
Well, that's part of like why we do this show, is because a lot of times it's so media structure based. I don't want it to be that. Like you show up, we get into the discussion, and we get out of here. Like that's what it's about.
Come on. Well, keep it international. One thing you talked about was the pride of wearing your country's like on your chest, the country logo, the country name on your chest. And we've recently seen a proposal presented to MLB owners about allowing the players to play baseball in the 2028 Olympics, allowing MLB guys in. And so we know that baseball was cut from the Olympics and it's coming back in LA in 2028. And there's a couple proposed options. I'm going to read these options out to you. You tell me if you think like any of these are realistic at all, which one they might go for, or is it even going to happen? Right. So one of the options was we align the Olympics with MLB All-Star Week. So that's option 1. Option 2 is you just cancel the MLB All-Star game in general. Option 3 is you cut out of the 162, so you play a couple less games and you do basically an Olympics break like you see with international soccer or something like that. I don't know if any of these are going to happen. Yeah. Talk to me about what you think. What do you think the owners might go for?
I think, to me, and this is my own personal opinion, when I think about Olympics, baseball and the Olympics, first of all, the Olympics doesn't need baseball, but like I want baseball to be in the Olympics. Baseball needs the Olympics, I think, to continue to showcase our game. I think the best option out of the 3 that you gave me would be to have the break in between the season. Now, obviously, that's tough because guys have to stop playing, and it's not just everybody stops and starts playing somewhere else. It's only select guys playing for an Olympic team. So how do you keep those other guys motivated, focused, practicing, doing all those things? So there's factors with all of it. There's question marks with all of it. But I think I've already seen it work for teams in Japan. I've seen it work for teams in Korea that have their own kind of break in between. And it seems like the teams pick back up like in normal fashion. So I think that would be the best option ultimately. I don't want to see you end and not have an all-star game because I think that means too much to guys. Obviously, that recognition is huge, and that's big for the fans too. So I think that, to me, that would be the best option.
I would think that one of the biggest fears for owners in this situation, quite possibly could be the injury bug striking a few of these guys that are playing. I know we saw with the World Baseball Classic, so good for baseball, so great, but there were a couple major injuries. Altuve was out for the first bit of the season, and then obviously the Mets, they lose Sugar in the back end of the bullpen. Like, all this stuff goes down. And to me, I think that's something the players would be willing to trade. Like, to put the name on the chest. Like, I think that's something the players would be willing to trade. Do you think all players are willing to trade that? And what do you think the owners are going to think about the possibility of an injury taking place?
Yeah, owners are going to hate it. GMs are going to hate it. President of operations are going to hate it, right? Because they care specifically about their team. But if baseball has the opportunity to be in the Olympics, guys are going to want to represent their country. Not every guy is going to want to do that, right? Because there's money on the line for some of these guys playing with their team, right? Guys going into a free agent year or has an opportunity to go and get an extension, something happens playing Olympics, that's the last thing that they want. So guys will be smart about it, but at the same time, this opportunity doesn't come around too often. You've heard guys talk about it in the WBC is this is the best atmosphere that they've ever played in. And some of those guys had been to a lot of playoff games. So it just tells you how much it means to the guys and what it does mean putting that uniform on your chest.
Absolutely. Well, let's refocus, bring it back to some free agent deals.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to hit you with some free agent players. I'm going to talk about the top free agents left on the market, and then you tell me where you think their landing spot will be.
Okay.
You down for that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, first up, I got Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger just finished up with the Cubs. A lot of speculation that he was going back to the Cubs, but still no movement there. Where's Cody Bellinger going to end up? Where does he need to end up?
Cody Bellinger needs to end up back with the Cubs for himself and the Cubs. I think he does end up back with the Chicago Cubs. You just see Scott Boras, his agent, and the Cubs front office are just basically at a standstill right now. I think ultimately he gets close to what he's asking for. It could be in that $200 million range. But I think in order for the Cubs to be successful, especially from an offensive standpoint, they need Cody Bellinger, and I think ultimately he goes back.
All right, talk to me about Blake Snell.
Blake Snell. I think ultimately he gets the biggest contract and goes straight to the Angels. I think it's not a team that guys want to go to because the organization seems to be in shambles right now. But if he's going after the biggest contract, I think the Angels are going to be willing to give it to him. I'd like to see him go to the Yankees, but I think the Angels end up getting it.
Wow, did not see that one coming. Did not see that coming. Well, Jordan Montgomery had a big year last year. He's still out there on the market. Tell me what you think.
I think Jordan Montgomery goes to Boston. His wife is doing her residency in Boston. I think the Red Sox could still use another quality starter. He was dominant in the postseason. He's been one of the most consistent and durable pitchers over the past 3 years. I think he ends up going to the Red Sox. And Alex Cora really needs another starter.
Hey, he wants to be on that Netflix documentary from what I heard. Well, former Red Sox, we got JD Martinez. Talk to me about that. What do you think about that?
JD lives in Miami, that South Florida area. I think he goes to the Miami Marlins. And the reason why I say this is they lost Jorge Soler, or he went to free agency. He's going to be more expensive. I think JD could end up being a little less expensive because he's older. And I think he'd like to play there. And they could really use that middle of the order bat to go along with guys like Luis Arias at the top. So JD Martinez to the Marlins.
Well, you mentioned his name already, so let's go straight to him. Jorge Soler's solar power. Where's he going?
Jorge Soler, the Giants need a big bat. Okay. I think they go after Jorge Soler if they're not already going after him. He could be huge in the middle of that order because his power can play anywhere. Obviously, a huge stadium there in San Francisco, but they've already linked up the best outfielder, the best player from Korea in center field. Now go get one of the best power hitters in all of baseball. All
right, well, another guy that's been linked to San Francisco a little bit recently, but Matt Chapman, right? Yeah. Matt Chapman basically gets replaced in Toronto by Justin Turner. So where's Matt Chapman going to go? His position's already filled.
I don't know how the Cubs are going to get both Bellinger and Chapman, but Chapman also needs to go to the Cubs. They need a third baseman. They need someone with some pop. Smaller stadium, ball flies out of there, especially during the summer. So I'm going Matt Chapman. And plus, defensively, him and Dansby Swanson, if they're over there on the left side, and then you have the right side just as great over there defensively. They're going to be one of the best infields in all baseball.
It's a good-looking infield right there. Well, keeping it in the infield as well as keeping it in Chicago. The last free agent I'm going to throw your way is Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson, shortstop. Where is he landed? You've said recently on camera You think he's been the free agent that's been most disrespected recently?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
talk to me about Tim Anderson.
Tim Anderson has been the most disrespected player, and probably for good reason, because he went from being one of the best shortstops in the game to one of the worst from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint. So, a team that needs a shortstop is the Miami Marlins. They're a team that could really use him. And I think it's a place where he can go to where he doesn't feel like a whole lot of pressure, but has an opportunity to win. So I think the Miami Marlins could be easily be a team that he could have a lot of success.
I like that. I like that. Well, actually, I lied to you. I got one more free agent. I'm going to throw your way. And this one I had to keep a secret because I didn't want you to think about it too much. I want your honest, I want your raw reaction here. Trevor Bauer. All right. Trevor Bauer, he goes over to Japan. Starts slow, but begins to figure it out over there. Does great. Recently, he went outside of baseball. He's known for his media. He's been on the forefront of baseball media. He's crushed it on that side of things. But on an interview with Theo Vaughn, never thought you'd see that collaboration, did you? Theo Vaughn and Trevor Bauer just talked about how he just wants a chance. He's willing to pitch on an incentive contract. He's willing to, if you don't like me, cut me type vibe. But still, it seems like he's not getting any traction. His name's not getting any traction.
Yeah.
Does he get signed this offseason? Do we see him in an MLB uniform in 2024?
For Trevor Bauer, I'm all about second chances, right? A guy getting an opportunity to prove himself. I just think that if teams wanted him, or if teams were going to give him that chance, they would have already done it. Part of me thinks that a lot of teams just don't want to be associated with any of the backlash that comes along with signing Trevor Bauer. I'm not saying that that's something that we know is to be true, right? There was obviously a lot of allegations, but I think teams and owners understand that their team is scrutinized in every single manner. And any negative type of publicity, any negative type of connotation that your team may be thrown under may be something that owners don't want to deal with. I'm not saying that that's the right thing, but I'm saying that if there was teams that were willing to deal with that, they would have already signed Trevor Bauer, because we understand the type of pitcher that he can be when he's at his best.
And obviously he's going to stay in shape. Do you think he has a better chance to get signed like mid-season if a team goes down, like an injury happens or something like that?
I think the more time that we see progress, maybe there'll be more teams apt to being able to sign him.
Okay.
And it's just one of those situations where we've seen it, right? We've seen different allegations happen, and all of a sudden we've seen guys no longer associated with Major League Baseball. And unfortunately, that might be the case with Trevor Bauer.
Man, okay. Well, we'll see about that one. I want the receipt on that one to see if Trevor signs anywhere. But you did pretty good predicting some free agents last year, so we'll have to hang on to that clip and check it out and see how that goes. But keeping it with the transaction side of things, not free agent, but we're going to talk about arbitration.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of news of arbitration recently. The players are cleaning up on the arbitration side of things. There's a lot of wins for the players this year when it comes to arbitration decisions. We've seen 6 within the last week, all be in favor of the players. But before we get to the big topic, the big player that just set the record, I'll tease it there. What is arbitration? For the casual baseball fan, what in the world is arbitration, and why do I hear about it every offseason?
I think the easiest way I could put it into terms is understanding that a guy is under team control for 7 years, right? But before they get to that 7th year, before they have an opportunity to go into free agency, in between that 3 to 6 year mark is where teams have an opportunity to give their salary. They put it, basically they're going to give the player, okay, this is what we think that you're worth. The player has an opportunity after that, when that 3rd year starts, to put what they think their worth is, or their representation can put that down. If teams do not find a way to agree upon that number, or teams cannot find a way to come to a middle ground, it goes to an arbitration case where the case is placed in front of arbiters, and your side as a player is presenting why you deserve this X number, and the team's representatives are putting in their case as to why you deserve this number. And the thing with arbitration is there's no middle ground there. Whatever is decided is either the player's number or it's the team's number. So that's kind of the easiest way I can put it out there for people to understand.
Does that cause stress between the team and the player?
Once you go to arbitration and the player is a part of seeing what the team is talking about, and if you think about it, just use your imagination, the team is finding ways to say why you're not worth the number that you have put up there. So they're talking about all the negative aspects to your game, some of the things that you used to do, but maybe you don't do it the same productivity anymore. So basically, in a way of saying is like knocking down your game. And it hurts to hear that as a player. Sometimes that affects players over the course of their career, over the next year or two. and they take it seriously. But there's also players that understand it is a business, and that's a part of what they're trying to do is pay you as least amount as possible and have you produce as much as possible.
Well, I think you said it best. Is a player that maybe had a great year a couple years ago and hasn't been able to match those numbers. Still been great, just hasn't matched the productivity of 2020 and 2021.
Right.
Is Vladdy Jr.
Yeah.
All that to say, Vladdy Jr. just set the record for the most money won in an arbitration hearing. He will be receiving a salary next year in 2024 of $19.9 million. He's about to hit that $20 million mark. And the previous record was $14 million earned by Teoscar Hernandez last year. So we jumped from $14 million, almost a $6 million bump up to $20 million.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Does Vladdy deserve that $20 million?
He does, because you look at, and this is what the case will happen when the case happened. A lot of times they'll compare you to players that are earning a specific salary that have done around the same production that you've had, or an example of what your career has looked like up until this point. And if they have those examples and the arbiters say that, okay, we believe that he's worth that, I believe that that's the case. And I'm usually on the player's side anyway, but I look at Vladdy coming in early on in his career, showing that he's an MVP level player. I think he can easily get back to that. And I think that he's still shown he's a productive player without putting up those numbers that he's had in the past. And he can still, as young as he is, he deserves what he's making.
He's starting to get in that Vladdy senior money a little bit.
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely.
Let's go. Well deserved. Well deserved. Well, we've been through the gauntlet. We're down to one topic left. All right. Ooh. And this one, we're going to stay with a transaction, but this is a trade. Corbin Burns to the Orioles. This happened about a week ago at this point. Does this officially make the O's the favorite in the AL East? And I cannot believe that phrase is coming out of my mouth after watching them sit in the bottom for so long. But does this officially make the O's the favorite in the AL East?
100%. It makes them the favorite in the AL East. I think it actually makes them World Series or bust, right? Because you don't add an ace to a team that won 101 games without thinking about getting straight to the World Series. Obviously, there'll be some other AL teams that'll be tough to get past. We've seen what the Yankees have done this offseason. You've seen what the Astros have done. They'll always continue to be there. The Texas Rangers just won it last year. So there's going to be other tough teams. But I look at the Orioles, got to look at themselves like what we did last year, and now adding one of the game's best pitchers, maybe the best starting pitcher behind Garrett Cole. We gotta get a World Series.
And I think what I'm interested to see, the Orioles is not even just this year, but they're under new ownership now. We're starting to see the sell of the team, and the new ownership's going to come in. And I think the biggest fear about the Orioles, the knock on them every single year, was there was no way they could keep this young core together for a long term. They were going to have to pick and choose who they signed, who they got rid of, all that good stuff. Right. But I'm interested to see how much money this new ownership group comes in and starts spending. They got Cal Ripken Jr. in there, which I think is awesome. He was one of my favorite players growing up. But I would love to see the Orioles start to mimic what the Braves have done right down the road in Atlanta. So what do you think the impact of this new ownership group is going to have here?
I'm hoping it's a flip, like a 180 flip, right? And they're able to understand, okay, we built a great foundation. Let's start to use this to trade guys, right? To be able to bring in great talent. But also let's spend some money so that we can keep a foundation of being great. And this is the time to do it because a lot of their guys they brought up in the minor league system. And you think about Cal Ripken Jr. being a part of this ownership group. He's got so much baseball savvy. He knows what it takes to get to that level, right? And I think him bringing those perspectives in is going to be big for this ownership group. And then they still got a lot of great players coming. So if they're going to spend the money now, this is the best time to do it. And they have the best opportunity to win. We already saw a lot of it last year.
You heard it here first, folks. Baltimore Orioles, World Series or bust. X. That's all I got for you, man.
Man, that's great stuff, man. I appreciate you, J. Mike, running me through some great topics. And that's what we're about here, Show and Go. We just break down the trending topics of the game. We dive into a lot of the game analysis, and then also just the branding aspect for players as well. I'm always interested in learning how guys are branding their game and really marketing themselves. So I appreciate you guys checking it out. Make sure you tune in on YouTube. Also available on all podcast platforms, Show and Go with X. You heard it here first. Appreciate you, Jay, Mike.